I hope you enjoyed that video and learned a little bit about the connection of the social psychology that you've learned this week with heroism and the study of pro-social behavior. So we're going to talk now about what is a hero and how can we develop heroes. What is their natural, or what seems to be their natural trajectory of development, and a few things that we can learn and take to our own lives and maybe the lives of our children and the people around us, and maybe to improve character education programs like we discussed before. So first off, what is a hero? There's a very specific definition, which if you remember operational definitions in psychology, is very important. So a hero is a person who knowingly and voluntarily acts for the good of one or more people at significant risk to themselves without being motivated by reward. And so that's really important. Someone who's doing something pro-social for another person, altruistic, so that while they're at significant risk. So some people have conceived as heroism as altruism plus risk. It doesn't quite capture all the nuance of heroism, but that's a pretty good way to think about it, as being altruistic, doing good things for other people that aren't benefiting you, but at a risk to yourself. So heroism is also very rare. You heard a few examples in the talk by Philip Zimbardo. You've probably heard of a few on the news. The studies of rescuers during the Holocaust, which were definitely heroes, they would have been killed if they were found out. Some were found out and were killed. So rescuers during the Holocaust were rare as well. Less than 0.5% of the total population under Nazi occupation were heroic and rescued people who were under attack. So why did they do this? What led them to that? Well, a short answer is we don't quite know for sure. There's not a whole lot of research on this, but there is some that connects to heroes and civil courage, altruism, that gives us some good pointers. And it shows us the connection of developmental psychology, which we've covered a few weeks ago, and social psychology, which we've talked about a few times. So first, our primary drives or biological factors. Infants crying when another baby cries. This can happen as early as 1 day old. And this is seen by many researchers as empathy, as the beginnings of that perspective taking, of that distress at others' distress. With increased age, infants begin to try and comfort the other distressed infants. And towards the end of the first year of life, children begin sharing toys and food without prompting to other children. And an interesting thing is that if this behavior is not increased very well by reinforcement or by modeling. So parents showing a child sharing won't necessarily increase it if the child isn't doing it themselves. And reinforcing that at such a young age doesn't really increase it either. It seems to be a natural tendency that children have to be empathetic towards other children and then to share. And these are seen as the beginning of empathy. It's seen as the beginning of moral emotions and moral values, which is really important in pro-social behavior, in moral behavior, altruistic behavior, pro-social behavior. So these values that children start off with as empathy are very important for the rest of their life. It was exciting for me to see this a couple weeks ago. We had a dual birthday party with my daughter, who's 1 year old, and her cousin, who just turned 1, to watch them interact and watch the spontaneous sharing. It was nice to see that when he would get sad and cry at something, maybe he fell down, that my daughter would go over there, try to give him a hug, try to comfort him, give him a toy, or cry with him. It wasn't as exciting that she was doing it at nighttime when he would wake up, and because she usually sleeps through the night, so that wasn't as fun. But it was nice to see that my daughter has this empathy, and I know that can turn into moral values and moral behavior with some help from me. So as children grow older, we talked about in the week on behaviorism, direct reinforcement does help. So praise, like this kid here, telling you good job, works a lot better than a material reward for increasing pro-social and moral behavior. So say a child stands up for another student who is bullied. That should be praised by teachers, by other students. It should create a culture of anti-bullying and helping. So that will help socialize the children. So there you go, you've got the social impact there too. And that will help develop these pro-social, altruistic, and moral values that we wish children to have. Another thing is, as they grow older, observational learning and modeling. So while it may not have an effect in that first year of life, or it doesn't seem to in the experiments, it definitely does in childhood. That children who see their parents acting in moral or pro-social ways do tend to act more moral and pro-social and helpful themselves. So observational learning and modeling are the primary learning mechanisms of social learning theory, which is a big social psychology theory as well as a developmental psychology theory. It's a big connection between the two. So one interesting example, though, is a teacher in a class helping distress students quickly and not allowing I'll rephrase that, I'm sorry. A good example is a classroom where a student in distress, whether from homework or having some other trouble, is quickly helped by the teacher rather than by the students. In those classes, the other students have higher diffusion of responsibility than if the teacher stays out of it and allows the peers to help. That will increase the student's responsibility because they realize, oh, this is something I do need to do, rather than thinking somebody else will do this, somebody else has the responsibility to do this. But parents have the greatest effect on children and adolescent pro-social behavior. Going again back to the rescuers during the Holocaust, the heroes that rescued people during the Holocaust more often reported observing their parents' actions rather than any verbal teaching. So in other words, parents of rescuers had strong moral and pro-social values, but acted on them. They displayed strong commitments to those moral values. And as these Holocaust rescuers saw their parents acting on those things, that's what had an impact on them, more than any verbal teaching. That being said, verbal teaching does have an effect. Direct instruction about what to do in a given situation helps really well with really young children. Preaching, so teaching about the proper way to act, similar to what you might find on a Sunday in your Sunday school class, helps as well as children grow a little bit older and into adolescence. So the more general the preaching is, the more generalizable it is. So you don't want to preach about such a specific situation. That's why I think it's really interesting that the Savior used parables, talking about general situations, about people helping or forgiving, not about specific instances necessarily. These parables could be generalized to many different situations. So direct instructions saying this is how you should behave good, this is you should share, this is good when children are very young. Then preaching later on, and then attributions towards adolescence helps a lot as well. Telling a child you are a helpful person. That was very good. That is one of the most effective things to do. So again, why heroes? Why should we encourage that? Well, let's remember what a hero is. Heroes voluntarily do good for other people at great risk to themselves. You see these people in this picture, they could easily be burned. That car could explode. I mean, we see that in the movies all the time. So heroes voluntarily do good for other people at great risk to themselves without expecting a reward. Here you see heroes at physical risk and heroes at social risk. Martin Luther King Jr. is a good example of someone at both a social risk and a physical risk. So in a few minutes after this video, you'll watch some videos of real-life heroes, but I want to talk a little bit more about the research on heroes. There are essentially two types of heroes. There are heroes who take social risks and those who take physical risks in many different arenas. And depending on what you're wanting to emphasize with your hero development program, you may want to emphasize social heroes or physical heroes. A school may want to focus on teaching kids how to be a hero when bullying occurs, or a business may want to teach employees how to blow the whistle when something unethical is going on. Another additional thing about heroes and hero research is that every culture across the world values heroes. So in the context of business, schools, communities, in any culture, we can be sure the final product of a hero development program or a character education program focusing on heroism will be well received around the world. And that's why things like the Hero Construction Company and the Heroic Imagination Project are so important. The Hero Construction Company are self-proclaimed hero trainers of elementary, middle, and high school students. The Hero Construction Company focuses on anti-bullying and character education. They use stories of real-life heroes as positive role models or exemplars for students to follow. The program empowers adolescents to act heroically by intervening and serving students who are in need. So with school assemblies, in-classroom activities, the Hero Construction Company goes through moral dilemmas, things like that, learning about the bystander effect and how to recognize it and combat it. They run through hypothetical moral dilemmas and learn how to go about reporting bullying in their own school context. The Heroic Imagination Project, as you heard a little bit from Phil Zimbardo, is another project that does some of the same things. They do also work with businesses, and they work on combating the social influences, such as the bystander effect, to encourage people to act heroically. So there are organizations, there are places where this is being done, where it's being implemented and applied. The Hero Roundtable is a conference. We may have discussed, or you may have read about, academic conferences. This is kind of a nice mix between an academic conference and a, I don't want to just call it a self-help conference, but in a way it is. It's open to everybody, not just academics. So there were actually many school teachers, school administrators, school students, as you can see down here in the front, that were at this conference, who were able to hear speeches from people like Phil Zimbardo, Ari Cohen, who is a philosopher who discusses heroism a lot, and see and research presented from researchers in the field, like me and other researchers across the world, who are able to share that research with businesses, the teachers, administrators, and students who are there. It fosters interdisciplinary work on the topic of heroism, and the bottom line of this one of the bottom lines of this presentation and of the Hero Roundtable is that we need more research on heroes. We need more heroes. We need more research to understand them. It's a positive pro-social, moral development, character education. It's a positive imperative for the world to have these things. So if it's something that you're interested in, be sure to email me. I can help guide you as to what classes at BYU Idaho might help prep you for doing this kind of research and get you in touch with some things like this conference and whatnot. And so it's something that I'm really excited about, really passionate about, and it really incorporates the social psychology and developmental psychology very well right now. There needs to be a lot more developmental work than there needs to be social psych work. So that is where I am aiming at. Now before we go, the last video, you'll watch a few videos about some real-life heroes, see how they act, see that groups can act as heroes, and see how and think about how some of these things might have helped develop heroes. Some of these things like empathy as children, direct reinforcement of behavior, observational learning and modeling of parents and teachers. And think about these heroes that you see and how they developed, how they became heroes, how the social pressures impacted them. Especially pay attention to the social pressures of this event. You'll watch the video that this screenshot was pulled from, actually. So think about how social psychology can impact that. And lastly, you'll watch a video. After watching those elevating videos of heroism and helping people in need, I want to show you this organization called Kiva. Kiva is a microloan granting organization where you yourself can directly donate to individuals in need around the world. So oftentimes we think, oh, I'm giving tithing or I'm giving fast offerings, I don't need to give more, or I don't know where to give, I don't know what organizations are good or positive, or that I know the money is going where I want it to go. Kiva is one that I've thoroughly researched and is a very positive institution to the individuals and families who need the money. And it's often entrepreneurs who are struggling to feed their families in the third world, who have come up with creative methods to earn money and pay back their loans. So, for example, I once donated to a woman in Africa who needed a fridge to make peanut butter. And so there in Africa, it was very difficult for her to order a fridge, to have the money to order and have a fridge shipped and pay for the electricity costs to run this fridge to make homemade peanut butter. Eventually, she got their loan funded with a little bit of help from me, but a lot of help from a lot of other people. And she made and sold homemade peanut butter to surrounding communities. And that was one way that these people around could get a taste of peanut butter. And it helped pull her family up out of poverty. And after that loan was paid back, I was able to donate that money to another individual. So the donations can be as small as $25 or as large as you would like. And if you think about $25, that's what, $5 pizzas, maybe $4, maybe four $5 pizzas with tax. So think seriously about using this organization. It's a really positive one, and there will be a couple videos to explain it to you. So watch these videos about heroic action. Think about how it applies to social and developmental psychology. Be elevated by the videos, and then learn about an organization where you can specifically help people. While donating to these people isn't technically heroism, it is a pro-social and positive action that you can do in the world. And last, I want to say thank you for being in this class with me. I've really enjoyed teaching you and discussing these issues with you. You'll do great on the final. Make sure, I hope this whole week you've been studying through your material, through your notes, that you've been making outlines with the study guide I gave you. If you've been doing that, you'll do great on the final. So thank you very much, and good luck.